Hello again, everybody. Welcome back, or I guess welcome me back, because I've returned. After what I think has amounted to probably a 5 or 6 month hiatus, I have returned to continue doing Along the Watchtower. So greetings again. Today is Monday, August the 8th, the 9th, the 9th, 2021. The day has come to an end. It is nighttime. Things are as they would be, as one would expect, right? As we were talking about prior to the hiatus, we knew that coronavirus wasn't going anywhere. We saw former head of the WHO express that. We saw leaders of G20, the world's economic forum of leading first world nations, Canada, United States, France, Germany, blah, 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 Britain, etc. A lot of them come out and express the fact that they felt countries needed to prepare for long-term, perhaps, generations long dealing with the coronavirus, and perhaps not in its form at the time that was expressed. That was some time ago. We've seen, EUA vaccines. Now FDA is talking about them getting approval. People are like, wait, what do you mean they don't have approval? Emergency use approval is not full-on approval. So now that we've had some experience with it, we've had trial and error, etc., the FDA is now moving to approve the Pfizer vaccination. If you couldn't tell, this is going to be a COVID episode, a COVID, cast. And that, probably besides the fact that it is an important piece of news for the day affecting everything from the economy to international relations. But I also got COVID. I had it, and, it is what it is. It's a coronavirus, a family of viruses that also host the cold and flu. And like the cold and flu, it caused fever, chills, some vomiting. The head cold, stuffiness, the entire gambit of symptomatic expression that you would expect occurred, and then it went. It was a cold. It was a sickness. I hadn't been sick in actually 2 years, almost to a few months. So last time I was sick was December of 2019, right before the U.S. outbreak and the lockdowns in March. So I found there, to kind of be a poetic irony there, the cyclical nature of it. I actually went to, just to conclude this little monologue about me, I actually went to go onto vacation, and the day that I arrived at my destination, that night, I ended up getting sick, so I ended up just spending a week in a hotel. So it is what it is, you don't want to spread it to people, etc. Now, you have to also understand, I am not an advocate for using a hammer for all scenarios. That's ridiculous. I am not you. You are not the next person, and so on. So how it afflicted me, of course, it may be different than how it afflicts you. Me, I work out pretty much every day. I eat chicken, drink water, and take a lot of supplements. So I've been at that since I got my surgery for my hip replacements, etc., etc. So I've been at that for a while now. So I think that definitely has a lot to do with how I reacted to it, how I continue to fare. Like I said, after that 24-hour period, I was pretty much fine. A lot of snot buildup, which I think is probably from excessive cocaine use. My nose is whatever. But be that as it may, other than just the snot, and I smoke, so there's a little cough. Other than those two things, and again, there are, I think, pre-existing reasons for those. Like I said, I'm a smoker, so it makes sense for me to have, there should be a larger impact as far as like respiration and chest congestion. Like that's generally what happens for someone like me. And I think for others too. I also had asthma growing up. So although I didn't have difficulty breathing this time around back in 2019, which yes, if you were thinking that as I was, I feel like I already had COVID back then, but be that as it may, I had a severe upper respiratory issue to the point where I did have to be hospitalized and I thought that I had COVID. or I thought that I had the flu, and they tested me for the flu, and I didn't have the flu, so they kept me for a few hours and then sent me home. Once they gave me albuterol, which is used for asthma patients, I was fine. So, this time around, did not have that issue at all, thankfully enough. So, that being said, my computer alerted me here to some issues it may or may not be having, so hopefully this records okay. But with that being said, let me just delve into just briefly what happened. I took the hiatus. I ended up really engaging into trading, and that has gone in a very positive direction. And that's for another time, perhaps. And I forgot to lead off with my preface. I am not a financial advisor, political consultant, virologist, epidemiologist, or a physician of any kind. Nothing I say is advice, nor is it to be taken in a like a clinical or professional sense. I'm a man with opinions that he feels the need to express. Simple as that. Come and go as you please. That being said, I decided to focus myself towards that avenue. Now that here we are some time later, I've kind of solidified a nice pattern, a nice rhythm. So here we are. I'm back to do some rambling. Without further ado, let's take a quick look. Unfortunately for the listeners, they can't. Let's take a quick look at the itinerary, actually. Let me see here. If I can even get this working. Oh. Yeah, you can tell I haven't been around for a while. So, so here's the itinerary, right? I know it's enormous. There's no possible way that we are going to get through all of this. For listeners, there's probably something like 100 articles here. Although one of the issues that I felt like I was having was trying to, make it a concise show. I was conducting the show as I construct thoughts and ideas in my head, which are all over the place in a variety of different directions, and that's not gonna work. So I'm going to try to make it more concise, to try to get the dart on the board in somewhat of a well constructed manner. I'm going to try. Not off to a good start with 100 articles, but without further ado, let's move the mic here. Okay. Without further ado, probably going to be some more do's. You know what? It wouldn't surprise me if this entire episode just did not record correctly, but here's to hope, right? Let us get to it. So we knew this was coming, right? We had talked about this previously, where the idea of vaccine passports, the concept of needing or businesses, because federally they can't really mandate something like that. However, they can force individual businesses, venues, in the name of public safety, to mandate that their employees and that venue participants, concert goers, etc., patrons of the venues have to be vaccinated, and we're starting to see that now. So this article is more than a month old. I want to say this was back in June, June the 20th. But it is you start to see mainstream media identify this almost a year and some months later, even though folks knew this was coming back then. But let's read here. This is from The Guardian. With COVID vaccination penetration in the U.S. likely to fall short of Joe Biden's 70% by 4th of July target, which it did, pandemic analysts are warning that vaccine incentives are losing traction and that two Americas may emerge as the aggressive Delta variant becomes the dominant strain. I believe I have some articles here of different... some different articles about, the vaccine lotteries. The Biden administration now is incentivizing with $100, $100 incentive, cash incentive to anyone who's getting the vaccine. Excuse me. It says in Ohio, a program offering 5 adults the chance to win $1 million boosted vaccine rates over 40% for over a week. A month later, the rate had dropped to below what it had been before the incentive was introduced. Because, it's still a lottery, and people know that they're not going to win. Like, that only works for so long once they realize, especially for anyone who, understands the numbers game. it's really, if depending on when they would deliver that lottery, it really is the initial portion of people who get vaccinated, who get entered into the lottery, who have a chance at winning it. But I digress. Oregon followed Ohio's cash prize, but saw a less dramatic uptick. Preliminary data from a similar lottery in North Carolina launched, back in June, suggests the incentive is also not boosting vaccination rates there, etc., etc., etc. But while that is happening, and we're having this disparity within local communities and just within the nation as a whole, you're seeing this we can call it a health divide, but really just this divide that is mainly partisan and political, right? People have generally accepted that coronavirus is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. A. B. The community at large seems to believe that vaccination is some sort of immunity, right? And they've fallen into two schools. Either they've come to the realization that that's not the case, and they've just said forget it and have learned to live with their life as they see fit, or they're of the train of thought that eventually immunity will come, and that by, because again, I'm going to provide articles we're going to read here about they're talking about Pfizer has 2 shots. Then they're talking about a booster. Pfizer also wants to develop a second vaccine. That's 4 shots. And leading scientists in Sweden, which is one of the leading countries developing vaccines, they're talking about 5 shots, right? Pfizer is eager to work on children under 12 because the CDC has put out concern that children under 12 now shouldn't get vaccinated. Like, the whole thing is a nightmare. It is a fucking nightmare. But while this is happening amongst the populace, you have G20 leaders, right? The same G20 leaders that I mentioned earlier who were talking about, COVID is here to stay. We need to get ready for it. We need to talk about generations living with it. They're also battling about COVID-19 patent waivers. This is about money, okay? What is the hold on, COVID market, hold on, the market cap for the COVID-19 industry, okay? What is the market? 2.6 trillion. I was going to say 1.6. The 1.6 was the last article I read. I didn't want to lowball you. So the total cryptocurrency market cap is like 1.2 trillion, 1.4, 1.2. So like one entire sector, public health, mind you, even though we understand that most of public health is a for-profit driven industry anyway, is larger, and oh my god, it is just mind-blowing. It is twice as large as the entire cryptocurrency market cap. All cryptos put together, right? And this is just one sector of the entire economy, and it's public health of all things. The irony. So anyway, they're battling with the WHO over funding and patent waivers. I'm not even gonna go I'm not. So let's just keep going. I've kind of tried to put this into sections here, right? So I have the opening, right? And it's just kind of setting the stage, the paradigm that we live in currently, right? CDC warns internal documents that the war against COVID has changed. WHO experts say Delta variant poses stark choice between behavior change or more lockdowns. The University of Sydney conducted a study they basically shame and lambast and just they spit vitriol and acid at anyone who does not comply wholeheartedly with vaccination, lockdowns, and any other measure that may or may not be implemented, may or may not flip-flop, and just may or may not even be effective. Doesn't matter. Just do it. It's almost biblical, right? So I'm going to try to get through all of this. Let's see. Next we have the vaccine itself and the effects that it may or may not have, and just stuff about the vaccine. No issues in testing for COVID-19 kid vaccine. Now, I know some folks are like, well, why wouldn't you? Don't you, if you're of the mindset that you would like children to take the vaccine, then naturally Yes, I was about to check my trade. I have to do this. I have to multitask. Listeners are not. For listeners, I was flipping through the tabs and I thought the camera wasn't. It doesn't matter. But if you're of the mindset that you feel like everyone should be vaccinated, including children, then naturally you would agree, and you would be a proponent of this move on the part of Pfizer. The first thought in my head, and I'm not of either mindset, I'm not going to say that I'm not biased, but the point is that I try to see things empathetically. I try to, not completely, consolidate the motivation of something based on my opinion, based on what's going on with me. There are other fucking people in the world. I gotta deal with them, man. I gotta deal with them. So I try to think like them. I try to put myself in their shoes. So I put myself in a person who wants to get kids vaccinated. And like, oh, cool, that's great, Pfizer. Maybe Johnson & Johnson should get on top of the game, man. Moderna, too. They did step it up. My first thought is like, cool, if you want that. But why hasn't that already been the case? They were testing it on teens as young as 16 or 15, if I recall. This isn't like a new thing that has arisen. So why is it now only that the CDC first said you should and then said you should not get children vaccinated, that Pfizer says that they want to? You see, it's really about the availability of the profit. There's a whole demographic of human beings that they can benefit from, and it was first it was up in the air, then it was made available, then it was removed, and now Pfizer wants to be clinical and physician-like about it and say, you know what, maybe we should do some testing on these kids. Maybe that's you're right. Maybe that's important. It's speechless. Let's read Yahoo Finance. Of course it's Yahoo Finance because it's always about the money. You didn't see this on the CDC website. I didn't see this from any other publication, and I read everything from, the London Times and the Times of Israel. Yes, a lot of these papers have like Times and Tribune in them, whatever. But I read all sorts of crap. You know that. I haven't seen this shit anywhere. This is Yahoo Finance. It's my money source. But I digress. So Pfizer, no issues in testing for COVID-19 kid vaccine as Delta variant rises. Amid the rise of the Delta variant of COVID-19, the push to immunize school-age children is taking on more importance, especially for Pfizer, currently the most effective shot on the market. Even though we're gonna read about how they're saying the shot is only effective for 4 to 6 months. This is what I'm saying. We're looking at multiple seasonal shots, but that's later down the line. We'll get there. The company, which reported second quarter earnings on Wednesday that topped Wall Street estimates, money, continues to see revenue from its COVID-19 vaccine skyrocket with each quarter end. Each quarter's bigger than the last. Oh my God! I keep telling you, follow the money. As soon as let me stop before I go on just another large tangent. But as soon as I started trading, all of these other avenues of information opened up to me. But let me continue. Now projected to reach $33.5 billion is the revenue estimated by the end of the year, bro. Just the end of this year. This year. I'm sure they hear news about the new variants and melt. That outperformance is likely to be aided, and again, this is what I was talking about at the top of this section here, is that there's a whole demographic of human beings that they could profit from that was removed from them. Of course they're going to jump on come on. That outperformance is likely to be aided, to continue, by the increasingly urgent push for a COVID-19 immunization for children under 12. With the new school year just weeks away, Pfizer has been asked by the FDA to expand its trial enrollment for the trial involving kids aged 5 to 11, largely due to a heart inflammation issue seen in the under 30 population. That is the only AEFI, adverse effect from immunization, I've ever seen acknowledged in any publication. And everybody's heard about like the blood clots and people dying and organ failure and all sorts of crazy shit. Which again, I'm not of the school that the vaccine will just make everyone ill. That's not how this works. That's not how the human body works. It's a very sophisticated, finely tuned machine. Okay. And sure, we can introduce elements of new technology for certain vaccines, not all of them. New technology may not, understand, may not have the nuance, blah blah blah. But again, that's only for some vaccines. I can't remember which uses the new time. I want to say Moderna uses the new technology and Pfizer uses the. But anyway, be that as it may, that's still not for all of vaccines across the board. And again, I really do think that the individual composition of the person has more to do with how a vaccine or with how anything affects you. It's kind of based on how you have taken care of yourself up until that point. But I digress. To continue the article, the company does not anticipate the regulatory request will disrupt its trial timeline and anticipates it can file for emergency authorization by the end of September. But in an interview with Yahoo Finance, Pfizer's chief scientific officer, Mikhail Dolston, said the conversation with regulators is ongoing and voted confidence in what the company is seeing in the results thus far. So let's back up here, right? My assessment, okay. So here's the whole thing about it. So apparently, from what we've just read, the FDA has asked Pfizer to conduct its trial enrollment. So let's back up a little further. Were they giving it to children before the FDA asked Pfizer to conduct trials on this? How young were because they were giving this to children up to a certain age at a certain point. We'll get there. We'll get there. But that's what's happening now with Pfizer. Pfizer's soaring revenues and COVID-19 stubborn resurgence means that the vaccine would account for more than 42% of the company's annual revenue. And this is I believe Pfizer bought Bayer. Bayer makes heart medication, aspirin. They were caught up in the Factor 8 scandal where fake blood got tainted with HIV. Blah, 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 blah. But this is also Pfizer who makes antidepressants. They just paid up a whole bunch in a lawsuit settlement with Johnson & Johnson in the opioid epidemic, taking responsibility for it, yada, yada, yada. So it's like they got major drugs out there. Major. They're one of the leading pharmaceutical companies on the planet. And the COVID-19 is about to be half their profit. And mind you, we still have, and mind, actually, we want to talk about antidepressants and antipsychotics that they make. Mental health issues has skyrocketed since COVID-19 and the lockdowns. So they're double, triple dipping. Okay, they're seeing it on all sorts of ends because, as we know, we live in it's interesting. We live in a nation that is overly pharmaceuticated. No, that is overly medicated, and yet the emphasis on medication. In terms of just like mental illness, the idea that resolving mental health issues initially with medication and then trying, a battery of therapies secondary in your treatment is still the MO for this country. So it's Scooby-Doo. What are you going to do, right? So let's get to some juicy bits. Juicy. 2 new studies indicate COVID-19 vaccine immunity lasts at least a year. Now, this is from May, right? So you know how I do. I like to paint a picture, a timeline. I like to let things pass, let things develop, see where an issue goes and how it ends up. So in May, 2 new studies indicate COVID-19 vaccine immunity lasts at least a year. Let's read. And then we'll read a more recent article that says Pfizer vaccine effectiveness declines after 4 months. A new study conducted on the effectiveness of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine shows that the protection against the virus drops 84%. So can you tell me how effective a vaccine is if it's only 15% effective? I don't believe that's very effective at all. But that's just me. Again, I'm not an epidemiologist, a virologist, or a physician in any way. Do not take this as scientific advice. I'm just a dude who likes to read stuff, and I like to talk about it. So let's talk about it. 2 new studies. This is the first article from back in May. 2 new studies indicate, and again, this is not like a harping on the scientific method. Quite the opposite. This is an emphasis on how time, and emphasis on information is what we need. Because every time we jump on something having this knee-jerk reaction, 6 months down the line, because here we are, we're like 2 years into this almost. 6 months down the line, we're like, oh man, maybe we shouldn't have done that in that way. We should have done something like it, but not exactly that. Hindsight, So 2 new studies indicate that the COVID-19 vaccine could give recipients immunity to the virus for at least a year and potentially longer, raising more questions about whether certain individuals will require booster shots. And of course, now here we are in May. So this is in August. excuse me, this was back in May of this year. Here we are, several months later, and I mean, they were talking about booster shots before May, but here we are now, and they're talking about 5 shots, not even just boosters. But the New York Times reported on Wednesday that studies imply that many people who contracted COVID-19 about a year ago recovered and now have been vaccinated will not likely need the booster shots. But the studies and experts suggest that people who never caught the virus will most likely require a booster, as will other previously infected individuals who do not have a strong immune response. One of the studies found that B cells that hold a memory of the virus linger in the person's bone marrow and can produce antibodies to fight COVID-19 when necessary. I kept calling them B cells and feeling like that was wrong because I'd never heard of B cells until COVID-19. That's good to know that I remembered correctly. Anyway, Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis Associate Professor Eli Eller-Beatty led a team for that research published in the journal Nature on Monday. The researchers studied the blood of 77 people every 3 months beginning about a month after being infected. The antibody levels in these patients plummeted 4 months after initial infection and then started a steadier decline. It tells me that even if you got infected, it doesn't mean that you have a super immune response. Of course. Come on. The team also collected bone marrow samples from 19 people about 7 months after contracting the virus, finding 15 with applicable B cells and 4 without. All right. Cool study. That last tidbit. Almost there for the listeners. Just hearing me say, the other research indicated that the B cells can grow and become more powerful for at least a year after the person first contracted COVID-19. That study, however, was posted to a website that publishes research before it's peer-reviewed. Interesting. Now, here we are. This actually was a little over a month later. A new study conducted on the effectiveness of Pfizer's vaccine shows that protection against the virus drops to approximately 84%. My apologies. There you go. You have to be thorough. That's good. Its effectiveness dropping is not good, but the fact that I thought it dropped, okay, that's good. It drops to approximately 84%, about 4 to 6 months after the second dose is injected. Okay, so that's quite a bit more encouraging, obviously. Accidentally stopped the recording. Sorry about that. Because the phone, you heard the phone ring. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But that's actually much more encouraging than what I initially had thought. In the company-funded survey, it was found that the vaccine's effectiveness was strongest at about 96% between 1 week to 2 months after receiving the second dose. The study also showed that effectiveness declined an average of 6% every 2 months. Tested in more than 44,000 volunteers, it was determined that at the 4-month mark, the effectiveness drops to 83% in most fully vaccinated individuals. The study has yet to be peer-reviewed. Well, there you go. So now it's a bunch of unreviewed stuff. Funding for the study comes as Pfizer has been pushing for a third COVID vaccine dose to boost immunity protection, which thankfully U.S. officials have vetoed at that point. That was back in July. As it currently stands, the CDC, along with the FDA, do not recommend booster shots for fully vaccinated individuals. Americans have been fully vaccinated, do not need a booster at this time. The CDC, FDA, and NIH are engaged in science-based, rigorous process to consider whether or when a booster might be necessary. According to the data, if effectiveness of the virus continues to drop at the 6% rate, protection against the virus would be 50%, approximately a year and a half after full vaccination. The study also showed that through declining, the vaccine was 97% effective against severe disease for at least 6 months. Okay, so let me just see something. So effectiveness, protection against the virus. Okay, so here's the thing. We know that vaccines do not create immunity. You are not immune from catching the virus if you become vaccinated. With that in mind, when I read, because here we go, right? Because I understand that, and because I'm pretty sure that's what we're supposed to understand. That's how the science is. There's no cure. There's no immunity from it. There's no cure. There's no immunity. It's only vaccination that prevents severe infection, right? Severe symptomatic expression, right? So you don't end up hospitalized in the ICU. This last line, right? The study also showed that though declining, the vaccine was 90%, 97% effective against severe disease. I feel like that's different than the virus, protection against the virus. When I hear protection against the virus, I hear immunity. I hear not being infected. Like, this is why rhetoric is so important. All right? I'm not, like, if that's not the case, then explain to me the difference between 84% effectiveness, 84% protection against the virus, and 97% protection against severe disease. I don't understand. That's what so for me at least, and maybe I'm just something because I missed earlier, right? I messed that up earlier. But for me, the rhetoric is important. All right, protection against the virus, is that protection against severe infection or protection against the virus altogether? Because when I hear protection against severe disease, severe infection, that to me is like severe hospitalization, upper respiratory issues, ICU, respirator, etc. So, and this is what's got a lot of people confused. Well, I don't know if this in particular, this type of rhetoric, but a lot of people really are under the auspices that getting the vaccine it creates an immunity for you, and obviously that's not the case. So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I sorry about that. That's my fault. But it's good to try and paint a picture as clear as possible from multiple avenues of what it is that's going on, especially if you plan on putting it into your body, whatever it is, whether it be a fucking cookie or vaccination. Okay, so Cuomo, New York State can't legally mandate vaccine for students. This is what I was saying. Federally, they can't do it, and each state through the 10th Amendment has their individual capability, but I'm not sure any state has that capability. I don't know. I don't know each state's capacity to mandate anything in anyone's body. So let's read here from the Hudson Valley Post. There's my phone again. Friggin' New York State schools are set to reopen for all in-person learning. This is back in May. On Monday, Cuomo announced that all New York State schools will reopen for full in-person learning for the 2021 school year. Has this changed? I wonder if this has changed. Hold on. No, that's still the case. Beginning in September, our children have lost so much as COVID struck our state. Blah blah blah. Schools went into remote learning, only teaching in 2020. Many students did return to the classroom this year, but many districts did not return to in-class learning full-time. On Monday, Cuomo announced the statewide 7-day COVID positivity rate dropped to 0.9%, the lowest since September, yada, yada, yada. Last week, he announced vaccinated New Yorkers no longer need to wear a mask indoor and outdoor settings. However, masks are still mandatory in schools. It is unclear, back in May, if they will still be required. As far as I know, thus far, they are required still. Cuomo said as of now, students won't be mandated to get a COVID vaccine because New York can't legally require vaccines when it's only been approved for emergency use. This is why it's so... And I mean, that makes sense. Emergency use is just that, emergency. You're supposed to utilize that if you do not have the time to effectively test and qualify something. This is why, as I said at the top of the show, the FDA, there we go. The FDA moving to approve the Pfizer vaccination is very important. Okay, it's a 1, 2, 3. Pfizer gets their vaccine approved either before or after, one or the other, doesn't matter. Before or after they conduct trials on children, they then mandate it in schools for like high schoolers, and then once they conduct trials on children, and then mandate it for everyone, 11 to 5. It's a 1, 2, 3 process, right? It's as simple as that. By law, you can't mandate vaccines if it's under emergency use. This is back in May. It continues. Things, however, could change by the start of the upcoming school year if the FDA gives full approval to the vaccine. Cuomo didn't announce what he plans to do if the FDA gives full approval, but noted mandatory vaccines is a controversial topic. Yes, indeed. You know what? I'm not even going to go there. It's not. It's, you know what? It doesn't matter what we, the individual on the ground with the children, feel. I know that statement is ridiculous, right? Because it's our kids. Well, your kids. I don't have kids. But the point I'm trying to make is that no one cares what the individual parent or person thinks. Fine. So I wonder what the WHO, the World Health Organization, says. World Health Organization says children should not receive COVID-19 vaccines. Now, this is as of June 21st, A. And then, of course, B, we just read that, what is it? That the FDA has just asked Pfizer to conduct a trial study. So they will probably cite the fact that there's little or no data or hasn't been a trial conducted on children as to why they should not receive vaccines. But let's read. That's just me giving them the benefit of the doubt, right? Caduceus of Hermes, thou shalt not hurt, blah, 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 all that stuff. So let's talk about it. The WHO published a revised advice article on June 21st clarifying which population should receive the vaccine. The WHO's website now states children should not be vaccinated for the... Okay, sorry about that. Furthermore, the WHO says that there is not yet enough evidence on the use of vaccines against COVID-19 in children to make recommendations for children to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Children and adolescents tend to have milder disease compared to adults. However, children should continue to have the recommended childhood vaccines. Additionally, the WHO confirmed COVID-19 vaccines are safe for most people 18 years and older, including those with pre-existing conditions of any kind, including autoimmune disorders. These conditions include hypertension, diabetes, asthma, pulmonary, liver, and kidney disease, as well as other chronic infections that are stable and controlled. While a COVID-19 vaccine will prevent serious illness and death, we still don't know. Even the WHO says it prevents serious illness and death, but not infection. Which always brings me back to what is the difference between 84% effectiveness against infection and 96%. What was the wording? It was 84% effectiveness against the disease, 96% effectiveness against severe infection, or against severe disease. I don't know. I don't like the wordplay. Very clearly state three things. It does not prevent you from being infected. It is effective for severe infection up until this percentage, and then after that percentage, it is what it is. But, I like clear, concise wording about everything, especially when it comes to my health. But I digress. Because we're probably running out of time. But, so Financial Times, again, follow the money. Financial Times asks, how effective are coronavirus vaccines against the Delta variant? Let's see here. Because, I have like 100 articles, and I have like other aspects of the virus I want to cover. Let's actually go through some of these, and we'll just shoot it out WHO urges fully vaccinated people to continue to wear masks as variant spreads. And I actually kind of have this in a sort of chronological sort of order. So as things worsen, they're like, oh, well, we don't need to get children vaccinated, but maybe we should. Okay, well, Pfizer conduct a test now. Cuomo's like, well, I can't mandate vaccines if they're in emergency use, in the emergency use phase. Now here we are. Pfizer's about to get FDA approval. We got the vaccine, and everyone's like, okay, well, you can take your masks off. Now the WHO has, reversed course. And again, it's not even anything new. I'm like a few months off. This was back in July. So the Times comes out and says how the Delta variant affects whether you should wear a mask or not. Also coming out in July. Time reads, as infections involving the new Delta variant of COVID-19 virus continue to increase around the world, including the U.S., health experts are yet again revisiting advice about who should wear masks and when. On June 28th, LA County Public Health advised all people, including those who are vaccinated, to wear masks in most indoor public settings based on the fact that nearly half the virus cases in the county that were genetically sequenced are now belonging to the Delta variant. Let's read about the Delta variant real quick. The Delta variant, first identified in India, is far more contagious, as we know, and could cause more severe disease. Then the WHO reaffirmed its advice that vaccinated people continue to wear masks when in public settings as a precaution. The CDC has not yet changed its guidance for vaccinated people, last revised in May, that states fully vaccinated individuals can resume most of their normal activities without masks. CDC director said that the vaccines continue to protect against the Delta variant, and that it's more important for unvaccinated people to wear masks, even though we were just reading about how Pfizer's thinking that they may need a third shot. But then you all, like the WHO and the CDC are kind of at odds with each other, kind of saying different things. Then you have the NIH, the National Institute of Health and Allergy. No, the National Institute of Health is different than the National Institute of Allergy, which Dr. Fauci runs. Everyone's saying kind of a variation of this, of a variation of what ultimately boils down to it's not over and something needs to be implemented, but no one seems to be conclusive on what avenue to take. Let's keep going down the line. Experts who got J&J vaccine sorry about that, viewers, they just got a flash there. Experts who got J&J vaccine try extra Pfizer Moderna shots for Delta variant. I found this somewhat interesting. Well, I found this all interesting. But some experts who had the J&J single dose are now getting extra shots of Pfizer and Moderna to try and protect against the Delta variant. Experts who got the J&J one dose are topping up like gas in a car, topping up with the Pfizer or Moderna dose. They did it for extra protection. Didn't they say to not do that? Hold on. It's against mixing vaccines. Warns against mixing vaccines. Hold on. Didn't they say not to do that? Who warns individuals against mixing and matching COVID vaccines? What this is what I'm saying. This is what I was just this is what I was just saying. They're all saying something different. All right, let me stop. They did it for extra protection. The FDA and CDC don't recommend getting an extra shot after J&J or otherwise. By the way, the FDA and the CDC don't recommend. The WHO warns against it. So it's one thing to not advise for something, not be a proponent. The WHO's like, please don't do this. Some experts who got J&J's one dose are trying to get an extra shot of Moderna or Pfizer's vaccine to protect against the Delta. Officials have not recommended getting a booster shot after J&J's vaccine or any other, and two experts said everyone should wait for more data. Angela Rasmussen, a virologist at the University of Saskatchewan, tweeted on Tuesday that she got the Pfizer vaccine to top off the J&J she received in April. Rasmussen said that the rise of the Delta in the UK, where more than 95% of new infections are caused by Delta, 75% of new Singapore infections are caused by vaccinated people. They also have Delta. There's some other 74% of people infected in the COVID-19 outbreak were vaccinated. They also have Delta. Like I said, it doesn't protect you from infection, and it's seeming as time, that good old measurement of effectiveness, as time goes on, the current vaccinations are not as effective as originally presumed against Delta, and may become less so as time goes on. Speaking of which, and yeah, I'm just blowing through them. There's so much I want to cover, and I'm not even like 5% through it, and I'm only doing an hour, so I may have to break this down into. We may do a COVID week. Good Lord. Pfizer vaccine less effective against Delta variant. A study conducted in Israel found that the Pfizer vaccine, and remember, the whole idea is to paint a picture. So this is because I'm reading an article. Even if it's from like even if DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project, the military's research, their R&D lab for everything from biotech to bombs, right? Even if DARPA came out and said something in a study, you don't just take one source as gospel. However, you do take it into consideration. That being said, a study conducted in Israel found that the Pfizer vaccine is somewhat less effective against the more infectious Delta variant, though it was still found to be effective at preventing severe illness. As the Wall Street Journal reports, the Pfizer vaccine protected 64% of immunized people during an outbreak of the Delta, a sharp drop when compared to the 94% it had previously been known to protect. However, the shot was still 94% effective at preventing severe illness, a slight decrease from the 97% that were kept from experiencing severe illness previously. The data for the study was collected from June 6th through early July, according to officials from Israel's health ministry. The data and methodology of the study was not released. Some health experts expressed skepticism about the study, saying our mRNA vaccines like Pfizer have been shown to offer strong protection against COVID-19. Speaking to colleagues in Israel, real skepticism about the 64% number. Brown University School of... It's just literally a bunch of doctors tweeting crap. But yeah, good to just know that they're... And again, science, I've talked about this before, science is a highly politicized arena, pretty much like everything, every industry, every sector of everything, everywhere. So you can't really get by without falling into one school of thought. I mean, we've seen what has happened to physicians, licensed, accredited physicians. Some of these guys who've been working in their fields for decades, lifetimes, completely blacklisted, lambasted, excommunicated from their field, fired from their jobs, censored on YouTube and other social media platforms for simply so mind you, not everyone is all there. There are grifters, people doing this for money, popularity, fame, to kind of scoop up the sort of contrarian demographic, right? Get viral, etc. So you got money, you got those doing it for fame, you got those that are just like flat out wrong for whatever reason, whether they be kooky or just have false data, or maybe it's not their field. Maybe virology is not necessarily the field. Just because you're a physician doesn't mean that you understand all of medicine. That's not how that works either. But there were legitimate questions being posited in a calm, collected, intelligent, scientific manner that got lobbed into all of the hoopla, right? The taboo nature of simply asking questions. And unfortunately, we're silenced, like I said, censored in a very Orwellian, Kafka, McCarthy-esque way. And it's very unfortunate. But let's continue. Study shows booster shot after 6 to 12 months likely to provide best protection against COVID, Pfizer says. Naturally, Pfizer will be its own cheerleader for people to get booster shots. Naturally, Pfizer pushes for U.S. booster shots as WHO says greed is driving vaccine disparities. It's interesting that now that the WHO... Oh, I'm supposed to be showing you guys all this. Sorry about that. Now that the WHO has gone under such scrutiny for its deep connections to China pockets, for its flip-flopping, which it's still happening to do on key information. For me, the initial lie was the mask lie that WHO and Fauci told about N95 masks not being needed, people not needing to wear them. Only for us to find out later on the only reason that Fauci said that was that he was worried about the N95. Well, according to him, he was worried about the N95 supply for PPE for first line workers, healthcare workers, which is that's empathetic, and I understand, but you still lied. You still lied about something that people find to be a severely important issue, right? But let's read. Pfizer pushes for U.S. booster shots. As we read the headline before here, studies show, or Pfizer pushes for U.S. booster shots, blah, blah, blah. Studies show booster shot after 6 to 12 months likely to provide best protection. I want to read that because it's likely to provide? You mean, how clear are you on whether it does or not? Likely to provide. But as well as that, of course, they're continuing to push for boosters as the WHO says greed is driving vaccine disparities. We've read cases of, there was that one case of the guy who ran a hotel or casino or something in Las Vegas. He flew to an indigenous town in Canada or something, posed as hotel workers there to get the shot early. It was madness. It was madness. It was every sort of Elysium-like, it's like this Elysium dystopia, right, that has occurred between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. We're seeing this in real time unfold before our very eyes. But let me stop. After a sharp increase in U.S. COVID cases and amid fears of a surge of Delta variant, Pfizer on Monday, back in July, said it was seeking federal authorization for 3 doses of its vaccine to be delivered as booster shots. For a third dose as a booster shot, I should say. However, WHO officials insisted there was not enough evidence to show that third doses are needed, and said that Pfizer should concentrate on instead improving vaccine access around the world. Yeah, I'm sure now the WHO wants to try and whip Pfizer. The WHO Director General said grotesque vaccine disparities were driven by greed. What was it? $35 billion this year, Pfizer. What was it? $2.6 trillion COVID-19 industry. We are making conscious choices right now not to protect those in need, he said, adding that people who have yet to receive a single dose should be prioritized, and calling Pfizer and Moderna to go all out on supply COVAX, the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Team, and low and middle income countries, excuse me. The Director General Tedros warned that the number of COVID patients dying was beginning to climb and that the extremely infectious Delta variant was driving catastrophic waves of cases. And then numbers. At this point, there is no scientific evidence to suggest that booster shots are definitely needed. Swedish expert. People could require up to 5 COVID vaccine shots. Again, one expert, one study, one country, one department, one industry, one company. Any one thing should not be taken as gospel, but it should be, included and taken in under consideration. Now, this is a much more recent article. This was from the 5th, so it was like 4 days ago. We're getting more recent. We're getting there. A Swedish vaccine researcher has claimed that people could be required to take more doses of the Wuhan virus vaccine. Wording. This is Breitbart, so wording. Wuhan virus vaccine. Oh, conservatives. Stating that it is unclear how long vaccine protection lasts. On Tuesday, the Swedish Public Health Agency announced that a third vaccine dose would likely be available to the public next year. However, vaccine expert Marie Salberg, I know I pronounced that wrong, has stated that people could need as many as 5 doses in the coming months and years. The top of the show was talking about, we're seeing mutations. Every wave seems to have a different mutation. We had the B117, and then, oh my God, I can't remember the previous... Because remember, there was at one point where we had the UK B117, we had like the Nigeria B117, and they couldn't figure out how they mutated to be the same, even though they discovered that the pathology for the Nigerian wasn't from the UK. That like the Nigerian variant had mutated to become identical to the B117 UK. This thing is just like changing constantly, just like the flu and cold virus. Seasonal changes require seasonal vaccinations. Like this is an A, B, and C thing. It's weird. There's this Ryan George, right? He's a YouTube guy. He makes funny stuff. Ha ha he he. One of the things he makes, like a series of videos he makes, is like the first, right? So like the first guy to tell a lie, the first guy to play hide and go seek. And they're comicals, like the first guy to play hide and go seek. The first guy who hid never got found and he died. So ha ha he he. The point I'm trying to make is that we're seeing before our eyes like the steps that a population takes towards the eradication of a disease. Like, I don't know about you, I'm only 33. Am I 34? No, I'll be 34 Christmas. Shut up. But I wasn't around for the eradication of polio, right? I wasn't around for the Ebola campaign. Ebola's still around, by the way. I wasn't around when the campaign against HIV began. So this is a fascinating moment in history, not only for what it is, but seeing the processes, the institutions, how they engage in a health crisis, in a public emergency. We've seen how institutions and the country at large responds to war, outside threats, tangible threats. We've seen that time and time again. We know that game. We already know. You blow up something we care enough about, and we get pissed off, and we go and blow up your country. That's the the Singing of the Maine, Pearl Harbor, the Gulf of Tonkin, World Trade Center. Boom, 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 boom. You blow up something we give a shit about, we get all pissed off, we come and fuck you up. Well, that's what we do. But as far as the intangible, right, a virus. It makes me think, what if there was some like neurophage that came out that just like, all it did was just like affect the nervous system, drive you crazy. It like gave you instantaneous MS. Like how we would respond to something like that. Think the creator, it's something somewhat mild, like a variation of the cold and flu. I can't imagine what we would do if this was some off the wall new shit. I can't imagine. Excuse me. Definitely coming up on the bottom of the show. I knew I wasn't going to get through this. I'm looking at 16, 17. So much, so much. Okay, so let's just finish this up. So Maddie Salberg says, we do not know how long the vaccines would protect against serious illness or death. This means that we would rather be safe than uncertain. Salberg, who served as a professor and biomedical analyst for the Karolinska Institutet, again, I know I pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry. Swedish women are beautiful, by the way. Said that the health agency's announcement of a third dose was highly anticipated. Like Sweden was expecting this. On the other hand, we know that the virus will not disappear, and the Public Health Agency of Sweden has already flagged a third dose for at-risk groups. And I mean, for those of you who are liberal partisan mindset, this must be news to your ears. Like, Sweden, is usually the cause de liberté for economics, for how they treat the drug issue, quote unquote, how they treat incarceration, basically people turn to like Sweden, Norway, and like Poland, countries like that, healthcare for just like a better, how a better society, how much better our society could be. They look to those nations. So, it'll be very interesting to see how the liberal media, liberal partisanships respond to this. They'll probably just eat it up. After receiving the second dose, the immune response slowly subsides, as we read earlier. Within a year, it may be that many have lost their protection, 50%, according to what we just read against the Delta variant. We don't know that yet. And again, I'm just adding inserts. We don't know that yet, it reads, but if you get a third dose, it's going to be activated again. So, like, the WHO is saying don't mix vaccines. So here's the thing. Mixing vaccines is different than doubling up with the same vaccine. So the WHO is saying don't mix vaccines. The WHO is also saying you don't need boosters, that it's not proven to be effective. Meanwhile, Sweden is like, you guys continue to argue over that. We're giving people third shots. We're not waiting. We're not going to procrastinate. Let's see. We read about Israel notes decline. Oh, no. Israel notes decline in vaccine efficacy. We read about that. Studies show COVID vaccinated people can carry as much virus as the others. We kind of come to that conclusion. This was a study. This was an article from July 31st, so somewhat recently. I just want to know where the study came from. Health officials on Friday from the CDC. Health officials released details of that research, which was key in the week's decision by the CDC to recommend that vaccinated people return to wearing masks. Right? So the back and forth. You don't need it, now you need it. Delta variant, da-da-da-da-da. So again, time is the proven measurement here. As time goes on, every time they come to the conclusion, so-called, through rigorous scientific study, as they said at the top of the show, that things are okay, we got the vaccine, we're cool, we don't need masks, no, we need masks, no. Yeah, children get it, no, there's heart inflammation, no, now we need more research. Just like, and all of this, mind you, is being underscored by a profit-driven $2.6 trillion COVID-19 industry. That's the backdrop. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. To the 29 subscribers that I have to this channel, I thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart, from the very depth of my soul. With every ounce and fiber of my being. I don't know why you subscribed, let alone stuck around, but I do appreciate it. I truly do. And stay vigilant, stay concerned, stay informed, and be well to yourself and each other. Take care.